Hi, my name is Stina. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. Today I want to talk about something a little different. And not a new allegation, and not a new piece of evidence, and not creator drama for the sake of creator drama. I want to talk about a pattern I keep seeing in true crime audiences. Why some viewers walk away after a creator controversy, while others stay, defend, or simply keep watching. And I don't think this is about one group being smarter than the other either. I think it is about trust. It is about attachment. It is about moral boundaries. And in true crime, that becomes especially complicated because the creator's ethics are not separate from the work. The ethics are part of the work. In the nearly 4-hour hidden true crime We Respond video, there was one section that really stood out to me. And I know I've touched on this before, but I want to come back to it from a different angle. It was the Brad Pitt section, the very beginning of the We Respond video. John talked for about 20 minutes about Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, public opinion, accusations, and the idea of separating the person from the art. And the basic argument seemed to be if someone is an artist, or if someone tells a good story, or if someone creates work that you enjoy, does their personal controversy have to change the way you engage with that work? And on one level, I understand that completely. We all make complicated choices about what we watch, what we listen to, who we support, and where we draw our personal lines. People do this with actors, musicians, authors, influencers, true crime creators, everyone, pretty much. But the part I want to sit with today is this. What happens when a viewer decides they can't separate the work from the person anymore? Is that automatically irrational? Is that mob behavior? Is that people being manipulated by a crowd? Or can it sometimes be a moral boundary? Because I think this question helps explain why some viewers walked away from hidden true crime after the controversy, and why other viewers stayed, defended, or simply decided they should keep watching. And I want to be clear from the beginning. This is not about saying the people who left were smarter and the people who stayed were foolish. I don't think that's what happened, actually. I think people had different attachments to the channel. Some people were attached to the content, some were attached to the hosts, some were attached to the community, some were attached to the feeling that this was a thoughtful, victim-centered, psychologically informed place to process cases. And when trust broke, those different attachments did not all break the same way. But true crime adds another layer because this is not just entertainment. The subjects that true crime creators cover are real people, real families, real victims, real harm, real accusations, real reputations, real consequences. So when we ask whether you can separate the creator from the content, true crime creates a different problem. Because in true crime, the creator's ethics are not separate from the work. The ethics are part of the work. The way a creator frames a person affects how the audience sees that person. The way a creator handles uncertainty shapes what the audience feels confident believing. The way a creator responds to criticism tells the audience something about their relationship to accountability. So if a viewer starts to question the creator's judgment, empathy, or ethics, that is not some random side issue. That goes directly to the content itself. And I think that is where a lot of the audience split happened with Hidden True Crime. For some viewers, the controversy was something they could separate from the content. They may have thought, I still like the analysis. I still trust them on other cases. I think the criticism was overblown. I don't think this should define the whole channel. And that is their choice. But for other viewers, the controversy hit the very thing they had trusted. They weren't just watching for updates. They were watching because they believed this channel had a certain ethical lens. Careful, compassionate, victim-centered, psychologically grounded, measured. So when those viewers felt that something had gone wrong and then felt the response did not fully meet the harm, the trust rupture was deeper. It wasn't just, I disagree with the video. It was more like, I no longer feel the same about the lens I was trusting. And that is a very different kind of break. People can often forgive a mistake. What they struggle to forgive is watching someone manage the story instead of owning the harm. That's not just about hidden true crime. That is a larger creator pattern, and I've seen similar situations in my time as a true crime viewer. When a creator makes a mistake, the audience watches the mistake, but then they also watch the response. And sometimes the response becomes more revealing than the original issue. Does the creator take responsibility? Do they minimize? Do they reframe themselves as the real victim? Do they blame the audience for misunderstanding? Do they pathologize the people who left? Do they suggest that the critics are just hateful, unstable, jealous, manipulated, or part of a mob? Because when that happens, the audience is no longer just reacting to the original controversy. They are reacting to the way the creator explains the controversy. And that brings me back to the Brad Pitt analogy. Because the way I understood that section was not simply, can you separate art from the artist? It also felt connected to a deeper argument. Why do people care so much? Why can't people just appreciate the art? Why can't people just appreciate the work? Why do people decide they can't support someone anymore? And my answer is because sometimes support becomes a moral decision. That does not mean every viewer has to draw the same line. It does not mean every allegation is true. And it also does not mean every mistake should destroy someone. And it does not mean people should pile on, harass, or attack. But it does mean viewers are allowed to say, I don't feel comfortable supporting this anymore. And that should not automatically be framed as irrational. Sometimes leaving is not mob behavior. Sometimes leaving is a boundary. And this is where the audience split becomes really revealing. Because some viewers probably saw the controversy and thought, this is unfortunate, but I can move past it. And other viewers saw the same thing and thought, no, this changes how I see this channel. Same situation, different emotional response, different trust threshold, different moral boundary. That does not mean one group is automatically better than the other. It means people were evaluating different things. One viewer may be evaluating the content itself. Do I still find these videos useful? Another viewer may be evaluating the creator's judgment. Do I still trust the way this person frames things? Another viewer may be evaluating the community. Do I still feel aligned here? Another viewer may be evaluating the response. Did they actually take accountability, or did they try to control the narrative? And those are not the same question. That's why the audience did not respond as one group. Now, for the people who stayed and defended them strongly, I don't think it's helpful to mock that, because creator loyalty is not always blind loyalty. Sometimes they stay because they separate the controversy from the content. And sometimes, yes, they stay because looking at the evidence would create cognitive dissonance. But cognitive dissonance does not mean someone is stupid. It means something they believed is colliding with something uncomfortable, and that can be painful. If you believed a creator was careful, ethical, and compassionate, then evidence that complicates that image creates a problem. You either reassess the creator, or you reject the evidence, or you minimize the issue, or you attack the people bringing it up, or you decide, I don't want to know. And I think all of those responses happen in creator controversies, not just with hidden true crime, all over YouTube, all over true crime especially, all over influencer culture. Because when people subscribe to a creator, they're not always just subscribing to videos. Sometimes they are subscribing to a feeling, a routine, a worldview, a community, a sense that these are my people. This creator sees what I see. So when that creator is criticized, it can feel personal. It can feel like the criticism is not just about the creator. It can feel like it is about the viewer's own judgment. And a lot of people do not want to sit in that feeling. So they defend. And again, I don't say that with contempt at all. I say that because this is what humans do when something threatens a belief we were emotionally invested in. But on the other side, the people who left were not necessarily trying to be cruel either. A lot of them were not trying to destroy anyone. They were not trying to join a mob. They were simply saying, this does not feel the same anymore. And I think that phrase captures something important, because sometimes a trust break is not loud. Sometimes people do not make a big announcement. They do not write a long comment. They do not argue in the chat. They just stop watching. Or they keep watching, but the warmth is gone. Or they watch with skepticism instead of trust. Or they realize the channel no longer feels like the place they thought it was. That kind of audience loss is harder to measure, but it is very real. And this is why accountability carries so much weight. Because when a creator's public brand is built on empathy, truth, victim advocacy, psychology, or moral clarity, then the audience expects the creator to apply those same standards inward. If the channel is about examining other people's behavior, viewers eventually ask, okay, but how do you examine your own? That is not unfair, in my opinion. That is the standard created by the brand itself. And I think this helps explain why some viewers backed away from hidden true crime. Not because they were smarter, and not because they were better, and not because they were looking for a reason to hate, but because the channel's own ethical brand was part of what they were buying into. And once that ethical identity felt unstable, the content felt different. Now, I want to be fair here. There are probably viewers who stayed with hidden true crime who did not ignore everything. They may have looked at it and simply reached a different conclusion. They may have thought the backlash was disproportionate. They may have thought the host made mistakes but not deserve long-term criticism. They may have thought the channel still had value. They may have thought the whole thing became too messy and they did not want to participate. And those are all different from blind loyalty. So this is not a video saying everyone who stayed is wrong. It's a video asking why people reacted so differently. And I think the answer is that people were not all grieving the same loss. Not every trust rupture creates a clean exit. Sometimes people stay in the audience, but the relationship has changed. And once that happens, every new video is filtered through the new lens. A statement that once would have sounded compassionate may now sound defensive. A long explanation that once might have felt helpful may now feel like over-explaining. That's what happens when trust changes. The same content lands differently. And this is why I don't think the hidden true crime controversy disappeared, even if the channel moved on. Because audience trust does not always repair just because time passes. Sometimes time softens it, sometimes it buries it, and sometimes it gives people more distance to understand why something felt wrong in the first place. And that is where I am now. I'm not interested in telling people who they can or cannot watch. I'm not interested in harassing anyone. I'm not interested in turning this into creator drama either. I'm interested in the pattern. And the pattern is this. When a true crime creator builds trust through moral authority, empathy, and careful analysis, a controversy does not just challenge the creator's reputation. It challenges the audience's relationship with the lens itself. And that is why some people walked away. Not because they were perfect, not because they were superior, but because the trust broke in the place where trust mattered most. But what I don't think is fair is framing every person who walked away as hateful, irrational, or part of some mob. Because sometimes stepping away is not an attack. Sometimes it is discernment. Sometimes it is grief. Sometimes it is a boundary. And in true crime, where the creator's ethics are part of the content, viewers are allowed to care about that. So to me, the real question is not never trust creators, and it's not cancel everyone the moment they disappoint you. The lesson is don't outsource your discernment to any creator, including me. Watch the content, look at the framing, notice what happens when someone is criticized, and then decide where your own line is. Because when trust breaks, people do not all move in the same direction. But that does not mean the people who walked away were wrong to leave. Sometimes leaving is the only way a viewer can say, I saw what happened and I can't unsee it. So I'm curious where you land on this issue. Have you ever walked away from a creator because the trust changed? Or have you ever stayed with a creator after a controversy because you still found value in the work? And how do you decide where your own line is? I don't think everyone answers that the same way, and I don't think everyone has to. But I do think it is worth talking about, especially in true crime, where the creator's ethics are part of the content. Let me know what you think in the comments, respectfully. I know people may see this differently, and that's part of the point. Thank you for joining me today. If this kind of pattern-based true crime commentary is your kind of content, I'd love to have you subscribe. And if you found this video helpful, liking and sharing it really does help the channel. I'll see you in the next one.